And we are going to our last one, which is an entirely different theme, because now we are going to talk about employee experience. And our last debate is inspired by a LinkedIn post by, one of today's beautiful guests, namely Alex. It's something that I came across not that long ago. So here's what Alex had to say. You know what I'm tired of? Companies that don't think about offboarding as much as onboarding when it comes to employee experience. We are in an era with so much economic uncertainty and where layoffs are rife. So at least do the right thing and put some thought into it. Not only that, if you're getting innovative with how to onboard employees, you can do the same with offboarding. Now is the time to impact the future of work. Be bold and do something different. Don't just follow the same old tried and tested recipe. These employees might not work for you anymore, but they'll definitely remember their experience. While onboarding has been on organizations' radars for years, offboarding remains behind. Good recent stats seem hard to find, but various articles state that around 71% of companies have not implemented a formal offboarding process. Not only does this impact the employee experience, it also opens the door for a variety of security and other risks. And all of this brings me to our third and final statement of today. When it comes to the future of work, organizations that don't offboard will be left behind. I'm going to start with Tim because I can imagine Alex's answer. Tim, I'm going to start with you.
I'll say no, but on this one.
All right. Alex.
You're not going to be surprised by this. My response, yes.
All right. A triple yes.
A triple yes. Yeah.
Tim, I'm going to go back to you. Please elaborate. You said no, but.
In my mind, offboarding, and maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but in my mind, offboarding is kind of a bare minimum thing that you should be doing. Like if somebody's leaving the company, you should be doing an exit survey. You should have like an exit interview, going through the process to collect computers, badges, whatever. I think that there's ways that you could improve that process. But I think, as far as like, I've heard a lot about, people wanting their former employees to be ambassadors for the company. And I think that's well and good. I think in some companies that works, but if you're laying people off or firing them, I don't think they're going to be happy no matter how nice your offboarding process is. If they're leaving voluntarily, I think that's a little bit different. So yeah, just not sure I have a cohesive thought there, but I think it's something that you have to have. I don't see it making a kind of a future work type impact.
Thank you. Alex, the triple yes.
Triple yes, yeah. And now listening to Tim, definitely agree with my triple yes. So many things that I disagree with. Chomping at the bit here. So first of all, the first thing that Tim alluded to was more looking at offboarding as processes. I don't look at it like that. I look at offboarding as an experience. And if it's done poorly, then it can really alter how that employee perceives the company. I also disagree that when you lay somebody off, that it can't actually be done well and in a humane way and actually make a difference in terms of how they look at the company. I have had countless experiences in my career as a people partner and a business partner where people have actually said to me in a layoff conversation, thank you for all you've done for me as an employee and during this experience. So they were leaving not with a bad taste in their mouth necessarily. Now, I'm not saying that's indicative of every conversation, but I'm saying we should be doing more than the bare minimum to make that happen. Here's the other thing. We see how many companies are laying people off right now and how many are doing it poorly and how they're in the news. So what does that mean for their corporate reputation? It's not good. And it's going to take a while to get back. And word gets around and people don't necessarily want to apply for jobs if they know their friends have had negative experiences at those companies. And those companies are going to lose out because those could have been great hires and talent for them long term. The other thing people forget about is boomerangs, people that leave and come back. If you write those people off when they're leaving, like, oh, they're dead to me, right? Like they've gone, they left us. Well, guess what? How are you ever going to get them back with that kind of mentality? And I can tell you, my last company, for example, we got a number of boomerangs because they realized that the grass isn't always greener depending on where you go as well. So for all my hopefully obvious reasons to my yes, those are some of the reasons why I think that it is an area that is not getting enough focus yet. And as we see retention continue to get worse at companies, engagement to continue to decline, people are going to be forced to wake up and take this more seriously.
Thank you, Alex. I have something to say, but I'm first going to go back to Tim.
So I'll say, so specifically to the layoff conversation, I do agree that you can do layoffs right or wrong. I've definitely seen both, but I think at the end of the day, having a good layoff process, treating people well during the layoffs isn't going to make a difference in your brand reputation. I think if people see that a company's been doing layoffs, that's going to hurt the company no matter what. And so I think for me, it's more about what's the deeper issue that's causing this company to have to do layoffs. And I think that's what needs to be addressed. I don't think you say, well, we know we're going to have to do layoffs, so let's figure out how to do them well. I think if you're doing layoffs, then there's already a problem there.
So I think I would bifurcate those two things. I think you put two things together that are very different in my mind. Yes, I completely agree that leadership teams need to take stock of why they're even in that position. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's a separate discussion from what this conversation is about, which is what is the employee experience and the offboarding experience. And I think we're also underselling the intelligence of your average employee. They also understand, by and large, and respect that HR people don't want to have these conversations. They're there to invest in talent, not remove them from the business. So I disagree with that statement because I actually think that more and more I'm seeing people that are being great HR partners, not just myself. I hear it from others who do it well. It's always hard when you're getting thanked, but it means you're doing something well. And also imagine if you're an employee that's been laid off at multiple companies and you happen to be the only company that did it well. They're going to remember you for positive reasons as well. So I feel like you're conflating two different issues. And I think the first one you mentioned is super important, and every company needs to take stock of that so they don't find themselves in that situation again. But I think how you can manage it on the back end is very different.
Yes. I hear two interesting viewpoints here, and I'm very much enjoying this debate. One thing that I am honestly wondering about, this is an honest question, because I think I mentioned something around, 70-something% of companies do not have a formal offboarding process in place. What are your thoughts as to why is that? And that may actually be because 70-something% of the companies have the same view as Tim has. I don't know. But why is that? I mean, I can imagine that for, again, smaller organizations, it's just too much. They have a certain overwhelm because if, for instance, somebody leaves voluntarily, they are like, oh my God, we need to find a replacement for this. But I don't know. I can imagine it's different for smaller organizations than for larger organizations, as it is with many things. But why is that? Because this is a huge percentage, right? And as I also said, it was quite hard to find some actual accurate looking seeming statistics on this, whereas for onboarding we can find loads and loads of statistics. So anyhow, I'm repeating myself. Why is this? Alex, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the fact that it's a number of different variables, right? I don't think it's just one thing. I do think, yeah, definitely if you're a smaller company, well, first of all, every company, depending on how you look at offboarding, needs to at least have some sort of offboarding solution, right? Because you need to get people off systems, you need to make sure people aren't getting paid anymore. So even if you're the tiniest company, even if you've outsourced it, you have to have some sort of offboarding solution. Mm-hmm. I think the difference to what you're talking about is a lot of them don't have defined offboarding processes, right? And that could be because they're very early stage company. That could be because they've not spent the time and the focus and the energy to do it. It could be because they don't care, right? It could be a number of different factors, because I'll be honest, I have worked at bigger companies where even some of the offboarding processes weren't super defined. So it's not necessarily always got to do with size. It's kind of got to do with mentality and what kind of focus a company is putting on it. And I think when you're in growth mode, nobody is really thinking about the offboarding process because they're like, onboarding, we just need to get on. But as we know, everything happens in waves, and we're in that cycle where people are doing a lot more offboarding these days than they're doing onboarding. So it needs to be a focus area because the pendulum will continually swing, just like anything in life.
Thank you, Alex. Tim, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that most companies don't think about it because they don't think they're going to think about it. Like nobody wants to think about what if we have to lay people off or what if we have to fire people. Like that's kind of the negative. So I think it's almost like a head in the sand type approach. Like we don't like this. We don't want to think about these negative things. So they don't plan for it, and typically, at least in my experience with companies that have done layoffs, is it's something that at least by the time HR finds out about it, it's on such a short time frame that everybody's thinking about, all the things that we have to do, whether it's reporting or notifying the government or whatever, that they're not thinking about, how do we do these conversations well? How do we make sure that people don't leave with a bad taste in their mouth? That if we want to bring these people back, there's a good way. And I think it's with a lot of things. We think about HR can get very tactical. We don't always take the time to step back and think about the big picture. So I think that's why most companies would say that they don't have an offboarding process.
And I think to Tim's point that people do put their head in the sand and they don't want to face the reality until it's in front of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a strong HR leader can play a big role in terms of influencing those type of conversations to happen earlier and highlight or preface that they're going to be uncomfortable, but they're going to be to the benefit of the business longer term as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm supposed to be obviously the moderator here of the debate, but in this case, also because I have been obviously doing this podcast and we've also talked about related topics, and I have seen some quite high percentages of people boomeranging back to organizations. Mm-hmm. So when you see that and you kind of can connect the dots and you really see how this has an effect long term that I think can be really big. Yeah. Anyhow, let me thank you both very, very much for these fantastic debates. I've enjoyed it a lot. I hope you did as well.
Yeah, I did. It was great.
Yeah.
Any last words that you would like to share? Something that you would like people to take away from this session?
No, actually I say no. And then I'd say one of I changed my mind. One of the things that drew me to this conversation is the debate, the fact that it is one where you get to debate topics. And I think a lot of people fear doing that, especially if they have opposing point of views. Mm-hmm. And I would just say lean into those conversations. Mm-hmm. Surrounding yourself just with people that agree with you all the time isn't going to make you grow. If you want to have a growth mindset, surround yourself with people with different point of views, because you don't know whether that's going to shift your thinking as well.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I was actually really uncomfortable about doing this, unsure about doing this because of that, because I'm not naturally a pretty conflict avoidant, and so having a disagreement is to me.
And I was really excited.
Right. Go. But yeah, it's good. And I think we have to be open to disagreement, not only for ourselves, but also be more willing to share our opinions, knowing even that other people may not agree. So yeah, I'm very glad I did this, and thank you.
Yeah, I'm very glad both of you did. And for me, again, this was the first time. In the end, we ended up having 3 debates with different viewpoints, more or less, of course. Yeah. I mean, we were still very friendly and everything. And I was listening to each of you and I was thinking, okay, so I'm very curious what he's going to say today. Okay, yes. And then there was the, and it's like, oh, but there's something there as well. So fantastic. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, everybody, as well, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to share it, of course, with colleagues, friends, family, if you like. And I hope to see you very soon for another episode of HR Debatable. Bye.